All right, we are live. I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome, Lynn, to the Positive Effect.
Thank you so much.
So, it's been a bit of a while. I've been busy. If you've been following me on LinkedIn, like helping some retail clients, running around North America, doing some coaching and training. But I'm really excited to come back, and thank you to everybody who's been following along and subscribing and sharing this, because these conversations are golden. And I've been trying to sync up with Lynn since the last season. So I'm really happy that you're the first person on season 3 of The Positive Effect. And we're going to dive into your career, your lessons learned, and talk all about leadership and retail, my two favorite subjects today. But before we get started, I just want to say, if you're joining us live, thank you so much. If you're new to us, share it, post, tag somebody, share this conversation in your LinkedIn feed. If you watch it on, if you follow the podcast, share it, tag somebody, because it's an amazing conversation. And there's not a lot of these conversations around about retail leadership and a career choice in retail. And so put your name in the chat where you're coming from, and I'll go back and have a read of them afterwards. But with that, welcome, Lynn.
Thank you. And I have to tell you, if you haven't picked up April's book yet, this is one to buy. I already got my Post-it notes in there. It is terrific. So go out and get that book.
Thanks for the shameless plug.
You didn't ask me to do it. I just totally wanted to do that. Really enjoyed it. So.
All right. Thank you. Well, I want to really learn more about you today, and then get to share this with our audience, our Retail You audience, and wider audience on LinkedIn and all the platforms that we're on right now. So I want you to start off, Lynn, telling us about your retail career. And, Ron, a friend of ours, always says, the accidental career. He talks about that in the book Retail Pride. So the first question I always ask people on this show is, was your retail career accidental or intentional?
I always thought it was accidental. And then I sat with my 83-year-old aunt recently, and she goes, you were a retailer when you were like 5. My mom would come home from work with these gigantic candies that we would get at the movie theater. And she would buy me all these different candies. And then I would turn around and sell them. 5. And when I was bored, I would just make sure all the cans in the cupboard were faced out front and brought to the front. I was a retailer before I knew I was a retailer. And I had to be reminded of this from my elder aunt. So for years I said, I fell into it because I needed to pay for college. And I believed that. And that is in fact true. But when I really go back and I talk to my family, they're like, your favorite toy was a cash register. Do not fool yourself.
Oh, so, I love that.
So perhaps it wasn't accidental.
Perhaps it wasn't accidental. I love that.
But I did end up, just like most of us, I needed to pay for college, and I needed a job that would work around my school schedule, Got a job at a clothing store in Roosevelt Field. I want to say I was 17. And I fell in love. There's people that I met there who I haven't seen in, I don't know, 30 years, more than 30 years, that till today, I think about how they inspired me. So, and I know we'll talk about stuff like that later, but I started as a sales girl, worked my way up to a key holder and a lead cashier. And boy, when I got my first set of keys to a store, I thought I had made it. I'm like, oh, I am there. I have made it. And then I became a store manager, and I'm like, I get to hire people. And every step of the way, I thought it couldn't get any better. And I felt that way for more than 25 years. I felt.
Well, we're gonna dive more into your career. I love that. I can already feel your passion and your energy around retail. I can see a few of our usual people showing up. Hi, Ron. Ron's joining us from Colorado from the Airstream on his Retail Pride tour. So thank you. We appreciate you. But Lynn, walk us through your retail career. Like, we just heard a little bit of the beginning of how it started, but your last role, much like me, was a vice president role, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
And I love these stories because, some of our audience are like store managers, assistant managers, district managers, regional directors, all different levels, really. And they're always like, how do I be, what's my career trajectory in retail, and what can I do, and how can I make a bigger difference? And so I think it's really inspiring for them to hear from people like me and you, like how we did it, what we did, and what we learned along the way. So walk us through an overview of your career, the companies that you worked for, the roles that you had, and like really the lessons learned along the way.
Sure. Well, my first key holder position was at a store called Speedo Authentic Fitness. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the little Speedos that men wear on the beach. They had stores back in the day, and I was a key holder there. And, to be honest with you, I was the second store that they had opened. And by the time I left, they had 100.
Wow.
Not really understanding the workings of how a growing retail organization works. I just knew that they needed me. You need me to go into the city? Okay. You need me to go train somebody? Okay. I'm not thinking anything of it. I'm not thinking about what a career path could look like. I'm just like really excited to be tapped for these little projects. And the more projects I took on, the more visibility from corporate I was able to get. Next thing you know it, I'm a store manager. Well, with that role came opening new stores and helping new store managers. And I didn't know anything about being ready for next. There wasn't somebody's career who I watched to know that at the time. Next thing you know it, I'm running New Jersey. I'm 23 years old. I didn't know that the things that I was doing was setting me up for these career moves. Now, once I got to the DM position in New Jersey at a very young age, as you all could imagine, I wasn't really prepared for it. I was just a really hard worker and really eager to help and wanting to help. But I wasn't a very good DM. I just thought I had to do it all. So I did, and people didn't like me much. And, it was what it was. And the commute to New Jersey from Long Island, I will have all of you know, is not pleasant.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. So as my career progressed, I did leave Speedo when they had 100 stores. And I was very grateful for the opportunity at such a young age to really do it all, from store openings to hiring to trainings, product feedback, going to the corporate office. I mean, that was like from 0 to 100. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity. I'll never forget that. And from there, it really just started to move. I decided to take a role with, I think it was, who was next? I want to say after Speedo was Claire's Accessories. And Claire's was very cool. What I liked about Claire's, and everyone's like, how do you work with those little?
Yeah.
Actually not as bad as anyone would think. Okay. It's not. If you're organized, you're good. So I had New York City, I had Brooklyn, I had Queens, and part of Long Island as my district. And Claire's was dabbling in the clothing business. So they had some icing stores that had a couple of tea stands with clothes, which was kind of fun because doing the jewelry is nice, but I really wasn't more of an apparel person or felt like I was.
Right.
And I had some great visibility being in Manhattan, and I kept doing what I always do. You need me to do this? Okay, no problem. And I go do it. Or somebody has a problem in a store. You need me to help them or train them or bring them to me? No problem. And my answer to all of that was always whatever I can do to help. And I always looked at my career as helping. And then it just turned out that something else would come along my way and somebody saw that I helped. And next thing you know it, between my results and my wanting to be sharing of whatever I've learned or could add value, I would get a promotion or a better job.
That's really key. I'm going to highlight that because for anybody in a retail career that sometimes is feeling like I'm doing all the work and I'm not getting recognized, and obviously recognition is important, but if you're coming from a good place, if you have the work ethic and you're always there to help, which is what happened to me as well, along the way, I always moved up and got recruited because people were watching and people were seeing. And that has never, even in my own business, never underserved me in giving more than what's expected of me. I think has gone a long way. And it sounds like the same for you, Lynn.
Yeah, and I've heard this a lot in my career from other people. Like, well, I'm doing all this work, but I'm not getting paid. The money will come, folks. Just do it. Just be so busy that you're not thinking about it, and it will come. Yeah. And that's what the way that I lived my retail career. I never really thought about when am I going to get my next pay raise? I was just so busy working that it just came. So, when I think about going from Claire's, I went to Wet Seal and I stayed in that junior apparel business. But now I started to pick up some volume. The stores were bigger. Obviously, apparel is more money. The average transaction was higher. I had the fortunate opportunity to work in New York City again, as New York City was my district. Some of the boroughs were my district, Long Island. And now here I was in these gigantic stores. And I honed my skills as a visual merchandiser, as a DM, because I didn't really have a lot to work with in these little format stores. And now here I am, 5,000 square foot store, 2,800 square foot store from these little tiny Claire's boxes. I learned a lot and I picked up a lot of volume, a lot of great experience. But, just like so busy working, who's looking for a job? Not me, but the recruiters were out in full force. And Structure at the time, if those of you who remember Structure, was looking for a district manager. And, I didn't know if men's was really for me. I didn't know if that was going to work, but I started thinking more long-term, like, I need to be well-rounded. I need to step out of the juniors box and into a box that I'm not as comfortable with, and work for a bigger company like Limited Brands. At the time, Structure was part of Limited Brands.
Yeah.
And that experience, no one could have told me it would have been one of the best retail experiences of my life. Even though Structure disappeared, it turned into Express. And I got to be part of Express for 6 years during their transition to Express Men's in these dual gender stores. And these stores were humongous. I want to say at my height, I was doing $52 million.
Wow.
In a 10-store district. I mean, it was bananas. Roosevelt Field had well over 100 employees during holiday, and the amount of talent I got a chance to work with, and the countless remodels, wonderful. Oh my God.
It sounds like I'm going to recap a little bit, and then I'm going to jump into some more questions. But it sounds like when you're thinking about your career, like at the beginning, it was just go do the work, be helpful, just go at it. And then as you started to grow into that multi-site, like more well-rounded, thinking about bigger box, bigger volume, different things, because that will make you more well-rounded, which will set you up for the future of when you grew into that executive role, right?
Yes. And a lot of it was by accident. I mean, I'd like to tell you how smart I am and strategic I was, but I don't know that I was so smart and strategic as much as I was excited by learning new things.
Right.
By no means, and I'll just let everybody know this, I never thought in 1,000 years I would be anything more than a store manager. And I was perfectly content with that. I didn't have like my eye on being a vice president or something. I didn't think I had the skill. I wasn't a terrific student. I just knew I was a hard worker, and I loved people and loved to learn. But I never thought I had the skill set, the smarts, the tenacity, all the things it takes to grow your career to that level. I didn't think I had it. But I think other people saw that. And so going from that dual gender, big volume, district to being a DM with Gap at Banana Republic, and then being promoted into a regional and then a director of stores for Levi's, all of these things happened by way of being recruited. At that point, I had never looked for a job. They always came to me. I was always too busy working to look for a job, never thought about it. And those pay increases typically would come, the big ones would come when I changed roles or changed into a higher volume or a different position. So Again, the money came. It wasn't like, why aren't people paying me for what I'm doing right now? Yeah. It was coming. And it did, frankly.
Yeah, and I had the same experience, so I can 100% relate to that.
Yeah,
I wasn't going into retail either, going, I want to be a vice president. I just had this. It's so similar, our path, and that ethic of work ethic, being a good person, showing up for your people, being passionate, getting recruited, and then it just continued to grow. And I like people to hear that, because retail's hard work. You know,
it is.
You do a lot until you start moving up, and then you're like, hey, now I'm making some good money. Then my family were like, oh, you got a real career now.
Yeah, right. Now they're not like, oh, you poor thing, you work retail. It's like, no, I work retail.
Yeah.
Like,
But it's like, you have to like have some patience, and you have to really love it. And I think that the people that really shine through and really love it, you make such an impact on people along the way. And that's what it's all about, right? So we're going to, I know that you then went on, because I want to shift gears into your mentorship, but like, then you went on from Levi's to Pacsun and then to Benetton, and that's where you were.
Yeah, that's where I was VP of North America.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't remember Benetton, it was like the Abercrombie and Fitch of the 80s. I mean, it was really, for me, it was very nostalgic to work for that brand. But I do have to go backwards just a moment before we move forward. I was a DM for about 15 years. And during that 15 years, or maybe it was 13, but during that time is when I really understood the value of your team, creating a team, being part of a team, inspiring, motivating, developing, all of that kind of massaging of your management skills and leadership happened as a DM. Yeah. It happened mainly as a DM, because now you have to learn not just how to motivate and inspire, you have to do it over the phone, right? You have to do it from a distance. You're not doing it as when you're a store manager, you can see your employees, you can see their physical reaction to your coaching and leadership. When you're a district manager and you have 13 stores, you're not seeing the faces of everyone all of the time. And learning how to inspire and motivate and making sure that your message is heard is very different when you're a DM. And that was really where a lot of the learning took place.
That's so good. Because when I go into a store nowadays, I was just in a store for the last couple of weeks, but like and people are like, oh, you were a vice president. I'm like, but 80% of my tenure in retail was floor based.
Oh yeah.
Right, DM, store visits. Yes, I was a vice president, but that's like 15% of the actual whole career that I had. And that's why I'm still very good in a store and still very connected to stores, right? Because that's where you learn that.
I'll be honest with you. The worst part about being a VP or a director is having to sit at a desk and do office things, you know? I love to go to the meetings and be able to tell people about the field organization and what we need and what the feedback is and how we could do better. But I am a field person first and foremost. I am a stores person. I am a leader. I want to be in front of the customer. I want to hear what they're saying. Sitting at a desk, as most retailers, we don't like it. We're not good at it. We get bored. We want to be in the stores. And I think the most successful leaders at that level, the director level and above, are those store-centric leaders, are those folks that understand that it all happens on the sales floor. And it all happens with your frontline employees. And yeah.
So I'm going to switch gears now and ask, and I just saw Kevin Finnegan jumped on and said Lynn was a great DM.
Oh, hi, Kevin.
I love it. All right, going to switch gears. So, I believe in mentorship. I talk a lot about that in my book, in my teaching philosophy around the ACT leadership methodology. So, when you think about mentorship, you've obviously had some mentors in your career. One of the exercises in the workbook is to write a letter to a mentor and actually tell them why, because a lot of people have them but don't really think about them. So who are your mentors in your career? How many have you had? Who are they? And just share some small, lessons learned from these mentors that you've had that we could take away.
Oh boy. So at first thought, I figured, I had a handful of mentors and they'll be easy to rattle off. But when I put pen to paper, there's about 10 people over the 25-year career that I can tell you changed my life. Some of them, they know they're my mentor, and others would probably be very surprised to be on my list of people that have inspired me in such a way. Going back to my very first retail job as a sales girl in a clothing store, I had an assistant manager named Gina Scala. Gina must have been 22 at the time. She had just graduated FIT. Gina was a mentor to me. I wanted to be like Gina. I wanted to look like Gina. I wanted to talk like Gina. I wanted to direct like Gina. And I haven't seen this woman in over 35 years. And today I will tell you, she was one of the first leaders I ever worked with. So that just gives you an idea. You don't know who you're inspiring and you don't know who's watching you. There are people out there like myself that are looking at the people that are on this call, and you don't know that they're watching you, and you don't know that you're inspiring them. And I think Gina is a great example of that. And this is going back a long, long time ago. And I have no idea where Gina is. So Gina, if you're watching, hi. People, when I was working for Speedo, Don Cook, amazing. I mean, I know Don for a very long time. I will tell you, he is a tough leader, but I learned so much from him. I didn't work for him, I worked with him, but I will tell you, an amazing leader. And today he's doing amazing things as a regional manager for many years with a very important shoe brand. So he's amazing. Beth Rabbit, who was the president of Speedo, this woman took a look at a girl who was in her 20s and said, it's okay for you to be a DM. I trust you. You know what it means to young people when you tell them, I trust you. I believe in you. I haven't seen Beth since 93. And without Beth, none of this happens, right? So when you're looking in your stores and you're looking at the young talent, the very few things you say to them does resonate. And here I am, half a century years old.
Well, yeah, and like we talked a little bit about this before we got on the call about the responsibility that we have when we're leading, that people don't really recognize when they're saying something, when they show up, how other people are watching. Like I was having a really quick conversation with my 18-year-old son the other day, who's now working in Burger King, right? Part-time job, first job. And he has this manager that went to Wendy's and took him with her. And he was telling me like what she says to him. And he is so empowered by the small words that she says to him. And that's the power that we have as a leader.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. Kevin Finnegan, and who is on the call, you just mentioned him. He aside from being a retail legend, Kevin, that you are, I learned. I still talk to Kevin, and I haven't worked with him in 20 years. And he inspires and motivates and teaches. And the big thing I learned from Kevin is just say it. Let's talk about it. What's the problem? Let's fix it. You don't have to sugarcoat. Let's just get to the root of the problem and let's fix it. And that honesty and that integrity about really doing what's right for the business and listening to your team. I learned so much from Kevin, and I want to thank him if he's able to hear me. The late Diane Nelson, I can't even talk about without crying, so we're going to move on. Michael Weiss, the master merchant of Express. Michael doesn't know that he was a mentor of mine, but every time Michael stood up and spoke, I learned so much. Compassion, empathy, tenacity. Michael Weiss is nothing short of a genius merchant and a true specialty retailer. Jane Wicks, I've learned from her so much. Jane now is in the hospitality business, but let me tell you, Jane was somebody that really understood the idea of people planning and really looking at a district or a region and saying, okay, who's next for what, and planning ahead. You could expect turnover. You could expect people to get promoted. You could expect people to maybe fall off the radar. What are you doing about it as a DM? How do you fill those roles quickly? She was amazing. William Acevedo, he was my regional. I
worked with William.
Love him. Love him.
I felt like every time I had a store visit with him, this is what I would take away from him. He always really listened. And he had this mannerism around him that was very like warm, inviting, calm. People would just gravitate towards him. Like when he came to my stores, I never felt like he was up here. And when I became a VP, I always went into stores and I was like, I'm going to take my title off and I'm going to work really hard to make sure people don't talk to me through my title. And I feel like that's what he had when he used to do store visits.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I learned that during my interview with him. I met him on a Sunday at a Starbucks in Manhattan, and he was wearing street clothes. He wasn't wearing, Banana Republic clothes. And I was like, well, in my suit and nervous and all of that. And he's like, you need to calm down. He's like, this is just a conversation. Like, don't worry about it. And he actually helped me negotiate my salary. He's like, well, what do you think you need to get paid? And I'm like, well, I'm not really good at talking about that. I'm good at talking about it for my people, but not for myself. Because, okay, this is going to be our first coaching conversation. during your interview, and he helped me negotiate my salary for the job he was potentially offering me.
Wow.
Totally great guy. Love William Acevedo. And finally, I'd say Robert Hansen from Levi's, who is just an amazing human being. And he has taught me so much about being inclusive, really leading with your heart, and making tough decisions, and knowing where you fit and where you don't fit. And so watching Robert from a distance, I have learned so much. And so that responsibility that we just spoke about, as a leader, you are always leading, whether you're in your street clothes or you're working on a floor set or you're doing a formal walkthrough. You're leading. People are watching you. They're watching the good and the bad. I didn't go through the list of people that I have that I didn't learn anything from, and that I learned, I learned that there are people that
what
you
not
can't
to be. You learn what not to be from other people. That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah, we do have we do have a responsibility. We absolutely do. I say that all the time. I'm like, and to me, it's about having that self-awareness and having that intentionality every day, and actually being so self-aware that you do catch yourself and you do realize that all eyes are on you, and the way that you behave and the way that you show up, and just one word can change the way somebody feels about themselves. That's the beauty of retail. We get to lift people every day, empower them, and teach them. So
I used to say negativity is catching. And
say that again?
Negativity is catching. So if you're a leader and you just got word that you're doing a floor set on a particular day, or they just cut your payroll or whatever they did, right? How you respond to that is how your people see you respond to that, and how they're going to respond to things that they don't like. So negativity is catching, and whatever you're doing, you're being watched. And that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing. I watched a Simon Sinek really snippet the other day, and he was like talking to an employee in a hotel, big chain, and he was having a great experience. And Simon Sinek being Simon Sinek is like, why are you doing such a good job here? Like, what do you like about your job? And he's like, well, the managers and the leaders, they come by, they say hello, it makes me feel really good. And I'm like, I love my job. And then I go across the street because I have two jobs and work at this other hotel chain. And he's like, and there, I just want to be like in the background. I don't want anybody to see me. I just do the bare minimum because, like the management there just doesn't make me feel good. And he was like, look at this one person, same person, but two different people in two different jobs. Why? Because of leadership, right?
Yeah, so it's everything.
Yeah, it's everything. All right. I could talk to you all day. We are coming up on time then. So building your retail career, how do you do it? What's your best words of advice to somebody that finds this and is listening and is like, I want to build my career. I want to do what Lynn and April did. I want to move up and take on more. What's a good piece of advice that you would give them?
Well, I'd say, listen. I'd also say take advice. Sometimes, when you're a leader, your boss, your manager, whatever you want to call them, when they give you advice, it's easy to be like, I got this, don't worry. Pay attention. If somebody's giving you advice, there's a reason for it. If you respect them and you've worked for them, I'd say pay close attention, adjust accordingly. You could learn a lot from people that have gone before you. And a lot of people have made mistakes and they don't want you to make the same mistakes. So I think that there's that element as well. I've also
a board of directors to me in a conversation that we had, and I love this. So I want you to share this.
Yeah. So when I decided to leave retail and do my own thing, that was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. And I've made plenty of hard decisions in my life, personally and professionally. And what I did through the idea of one of my mentors is I created a personal board of directors. So what is that? Well, it's a combination of different things. It could be your spouse. It could be your best friend. It could be your boss. It could be a peer. But really having people from a diverse background who care about you, who you value their opinion, and really talk to them about your goals, your aspirations, and really what are some of the things that you would like to accomplish. The board of directors will never steer you wrong. One, because they love you. And two, because they're all coming from a different place. They're not all retail leaders. They're not all business people, maybe. Maybe they're just people that care about you. But having people from these different walks of life who are your personal board of directors you then can make a really educated decision about some really tough decisions that you're faced, whether it be changing a career, changing a job, taking a promotion, taking a relocation package, whatever it is. Your board of directors will never steer you wrong.
I love that. I do have people on my text message, and I'm like, I have to think this through with somebody who on my personal board.
Yeah.
I think this through with, because they have this that I need to have this objective opinion on, and maybe I don't have that knowledge or that skill set. So I love that. I think that's really key. And I tell that to young readers all the time, find a mentor. You talked a lot about mentorship and what it did for you in your career. So now, Lynn, you've obviously come out of your retail career and you started your own business. So what are you doing now after all of these years of retail? How are you using all of this knowledge and expertise and this passion for what you've learned over the years?
Well, I've been really fortunate in a lot of ways, right? So I ended up with an amazing career, and then I was like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. What's next? So just out of thin air, I decided I wanted to open a wine bar, and I opened a wine bar and operated it for 11 years and franchised the concept into 2 different states, was able to sell those concepts, and that was great. And then, life happens. God has other plans, and COVID happens. And then next thing you know, there are no more restaurants, no more wine bars. And I was like, well, that was fun for a decade. And so what I did was I took all my retail knowledge and all of my entrepreneurial knowledge from owning my restaurant for over 10 years and learning how to franchise the concept. I just want to take everything I know and help people. So I created a consulting company. And now I am coaching and consulting folks that are opening small businesses or people that have transitioned out of retail into something else. And I absolutely love it. It's like this whole idea of people taking their hobby and making it into a business, or they're taking their retail experience saying, I really want to open my own store. Oh my goodness, I've heard that a million times as a leader. What are your future plans? I'd like to own my own store. Well, that's what I'm doing now. I'm helping people open their own businesses from scratch, because retail teaches you a lot, but it doesn't teach you all of it. There's that whole home office piece that if you've only worked in the field, you don't really know about. You're not an expert at it. And I'm happy to say that I made all the mistakes for you early on in my hospitality and restaurant business. And, the girl who thought she knew it all because she was a vice president of Benetton learned that, there's a lot of other things like workers' comp insurance. So if you don't know about that, there's a lot of things that go into owning your own business that retail does not set you up for. And having been able to do that for a decade, I'm really happy to share that with others. And I'm also doing some public speaking. So I've worked, this is one of my favorite things to do. I've done some public speaking at Five Towns College here on Long Island. A couple of women's groups, ladies get paid, as well as What Women Want. I love standing up in front of a group of people, whether it be young people, women, anybody that needs inspiration, and just be able to tell my story, answer questions, show how humble you can be. And I think people really resonate with that.
Yeah.
I think they really like that. And it's true.
You've been an amazing guest on the show.
Fun.
I've learned a lot about you and just your passion and enthusiasm. And, that's what I stand for. I say the positive effect that we have on the people that we lead, the businesses that we engage with, that's the power of the retail community that I'm a part of and that I love to be connected to. So I'm so happy that we got connected and that we got you on this show finally. And you can go back and read. There's a lot of comments, by the way. So you can go back and have a read of all the comments.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's really nice. And, to wrap up the show, I'm just going to say again, please share this with any of your peers. Share it on your feeds, tag somebody. Subscribe to the podcast through Apple, through Spotify. We really appreciate it. And, just have an amazing day and go out and have a positive effect on the people that you work with.
Yeah.
And be intentional about it. Take that responsibility like Lynn shared, and, take all these words of advice about how to build your career in retail or outside, build your own store. So how do people get in touch with you, Lynn? Is LinkedIn the best way, or how do we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so there's lynnmione.com, or you can email me at ldm@lynnmione.com, and I would love the opportunity. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. So yeah, I'm around. I'd love to talk to you guys. Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, anything. I love sharing my story, and if you could feel like you could learn something from me, then awesome.
Amazing. All right, so that wraps up the first episode of season 3 of
Season 3.
Thank you.
And don't forget to get the book. Love the book. Gotta get the book.
Oh, I love that. All right, bye for now.